YouTube, hello, it's your boy, Tilt Matre, here with a Megalith tutorial. So, if you don't know what this deck is, or what it does, I'm going to try my best to explain it to you. So, Megaliths are a ritual deck. They base on ritual summoning without ritual spells. Yes, I know commonly many ritual decks, such as Vendread, in the game, they require ritual spells, Cyber Angels, not Megalith. And even though I cannot apply skills here, I'm going to show you something. This here for a second so that way you understand what's going on. This is not in the deck list. I'm just going to show you what's going on in the total picture. So, Megaliths have two types of monsters in the main archetype, okay? They have, let me lower the volume just a little bit. They have level 4s and level 8s. So their level 8s are Phaleg and Bethor. And we're going to go over what exactly they do, but I want to also go over the total concept of what Megaliths are. So their 8s have, all of the 8s have a generic effect, okay, that we have in Duel Links, that you discard them. And when they're discarded, you contribute monsters from your hand or field to ritual summon a monster from your hand whose level equal or exceed the monsters tributed. So what does that mean? So conceptually, what it means is that if I discard Phaleg, right, and I want to summon Ophiel, which is level 4, I need to tribute something that's 4 or greater. Benten's bigger than 4, so it exceeds the level. Senju equals 4, so that equals the level. Level 2 monster in the deck, which we don't have. But just saying, it's conceptually 2 is smaller than 4, so that doesn't work. So that's just the roundabout of Phaleg and Bethor. Same with Bethor. If I want to summon it with a Phaleg effect, I need to tribute levels greater than or equal to, but equal to would be 8. So if I tribute another Phaleg, 8 equals 8. So we good. 4 plus 6 is 10. So we're good. We're exceeding the level. Okay? So another requirement of ritual summoning that you need to understand is once you've already met the level, you can't exceed it. So what I mean by that, you can't summon a Phaleg by tributing 2 Bethors. Even though 2 Bethors would equal 16, you've already met the requirements of the ritual summon. Once you've met the requirements, you can't exceed them. Alright, so it's a little confusing, but that's something you absolutely need to understand when playing this deck, because otherwise you're going to get confused. And that's just what ritual summoning in general you need to understand. Alright, so now on to the level 4s, okay? Now I know we didn't go over the level 8's effects, but I need you to understand the main concept of the mechanics of the deck before we even discuss the effects. Alright, once you understand the main concept, then the mechanics are easy, then the effects will be easy to remember. So Phaleg, Haggith, and Ak, okay, are the level 4s. Now, level 4s have a general effect are, while they're on the field, you contribute itself plus another monster whose level equal or exceeds the monster you want to ritual summon, and then summon that monster. So, for example, if I tribute Haggith and Benten, they equal 10. Haggith, Benten is 10. And you must tribute the Haggith. Because we are using the Haggith in the ritual summon, you must tribute said Haggith, okay? You can't just say, well, I activate a Haggith's effect, now I want to tribute 2 other monsters. No, said monster needs to be included, okay? So that's very important to understand when you're trying to master the deck, okay? So, if I want to summon a Bethor, for example, Haggith, Menten tributed, gives me Bethor, right? 4 plus 6 exceeds the level of the ritual, so I can summon it. And when you tribute the level 4s, same as the level 8s, they need to equal or exceed the level. Remember, level 4s on the field, level 8s activate in the hand. So 4's field, 8's hand. Okay? And now we can go over their individual effects. So now that you know what they do, we're going to go over the individual effects. Phaleg is your most powerful boss monster. What Phaleg does is, all your monsters gain 300 attack and defense for each ritual monster in your graveyard. Now, no. This says ritual monster, not Megalith ritual monster. So what does that mean? Why is that relevant? Well, Benten's a ritual monster, so it'll boost off your Benten. any monster, and they do not need to be different. You could have two Phallics chilling in the grave. It'll boost off that. You could have three Bethors in the graveyard. Boost off all three. Okay, so the effect gets stacked. All right, based upon the amount of same rituals you have in your grave as well. Now, another thing you need to know is this effect stacks. So what do I mean by stack? All right, that's a Yu-Gi-Oh term, meaning if I have multiple monsters on the field, they will both get their effect. So, Phallig, if I have two of them, all your monsters will multiply by 600 times the amount of rituals in your grave. If I have three, it'll be 900 times the amount of rituals in your graveyard. So it's insane. All your monsters get boosted, not just your rituals, your Senjus, and your Exceed monsters that you're going to make very frequently in this deck. It is not uncommon to have over a 5,000 attack Gaga Samurai with two Phallics on the field, and suddenly your opponent cannot sit there and sit on hand traps. So it's a very good way to go about things. Next is our other level 8. It is Megalith Bethor. So when this card is ritual summoned, it gains this effect. Okay, so in order for Bethor to get its effect, it must be ritual summoned. Phallig is just a continuous effect. If you revive it from the graveyard, it will still apply its effect. But Bethor, in order to gain its effect, it must be ritual summoned, okay? So, you can ritual summon, when this card is ritual summoned, you can target as many cards on your opponent's field up to the number of different ritual monsters, different ritual monsters in your graveyard, and destroy those cards. So this targets, but will destroy as many cards your opponent controls up to the amount of different ritual monsters in your graveyard. So, if I have one Bethor, one Ophiel, and one Haggith in my graveyard, I can pop 3. If I have Benton, Ophiel, Haggith, Bethor in graveyard, I can pop 4. Okay, it's each different. Phallig can count for the same, but Bethor has to be different rituals in your graveyard, which is incredible. It is very easy to pop 4 cards in your opponent's field, and you can do this on your opponent's turn, which makes this card even more insane. Alright, and I'm going to teach you how you're going to do that. So these are your 2 boss monsters. Now, the level 4s each have different effects, but it's very easy to understand their effects. Ophiel activates and searches a Megalith ritual monster when ritual summoned. Haggith searches a Megalith spell or trap. So very easy. Ophiel monster, Haggith spell or trap. So these level 4s get their effects on summon. So the minute you ritual summon, they get their effects. They are what we call an optional trigger. Alright? So an optional trigger effect occurs when a monster is summoned, but you have that you can effect, and it activates the minute it's summoned, so it is called an optional trigger. Alright? Haggith searches the spell and traps. Now, Och is a bit different. Och also has an optional trigger, which allows us to get a Shiranui Squire effect, so we get to draw 1 and discard when it's ritual summoned. Also, second effect, during your opponent's turn, you can ritual summon, like the others, by attributing monsters that equal or exceed it. So you can use this during your opponent's main phase. You can ritual summon during their main phase. So you're going to want to ritual summon this. And remember, we said when Bethor is ritual summoned, you can destroy as many cards that your opponent controls up to the amount of different rituals in the grave. So you can pop on their turn, interrupting plays. Very, very good. Now to go over the rest of the core is Senju. Senju is basically the Stratos in the deck. When this card is normal or flip summon, you can add a ritual monster from the deck to your hand. Increases consistency. You want 3 of it, ideally. Alright, if you do not add 3, you can replace with Gishki Chain, because the deck is pretty consistent enough that you can do that. However, I do prefer if you get Senju, for other reasons which we're about to describe. 3 Cyber Angel Benton. And you're probably saying, why the hell is this in the deck? Well, heck, I should say. Sorry, YouTube. The reason why this is in the deck is because you can, once this card is tributed, which you are going to tribute it, remember, we said we're tributing monsters for the rituals that equal or exceed the level. So if you tribute Benton as part of the cost of ritual summon, then when this card is tributed, you can add a light fairy from your deck to your hand. So Senju can add it can add another copy of itself for another ritual summon, so free tribute fodder, or it can add Senju. So if you add Senju, then you can summon it and search another ritual. Really good, helps you combo, right? Alright, so the last thing we want to talk about are the Megalith skeleton traps and why Ritual Cage is here. So Megalith Portal is a field spell, and you're going to search this out with Haggith. Remember, we said Haggith searches the spells and traps. So, when each time a ritual summon monster would be destroyed by battle, each turn it is not destroyed. So the first time a ritual monster would be destroyed by battle, it is not destroyed. Alright, now, keep in mind, we're going to talk about Emergence, which is going to allow us to special summon. It will not protect it once it's special summoned from the grave. Because once it's special summoned from the grave, it is no longer ritual summoned. Keep that in mind. But that is really good. Second effect. If a Megalith monster is special summoned, does not need to be ritual summoned, you can target one ritual monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Portal once per turn. Second effect is a hard once per turn. However, if you special summon off the trap, which we're about to talk about, or ritual summon one of your Megaliths, you get to add it back to your hand. A ritual monster. So really, really good. Okay, and that says ritual monster. You can add back Benten, Ophiel, Bethor, Phallig, any ritual monster you want in the deck. Next is Megalith Emergence. This is a continuous trap, which you can also search by Haggith. You can target one Megalith monster in your graveyard, special summon in defense, but place it at the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. And it's a continuous trap, so you can keep using this every turn. You can only use the effect of Emergence once per turn. Now, this card is amazing. Number one, it enables your portal. Remember, when a Megalith special summon, you can add a ritual back to the hand. However, something you need to know, you can only special summon properly summoned rituals. So ritual monsters that you discard for the cost, tribute for the cost, cannot be summoned back. They need to be properly summoned. Luckily, Duel Links has it where in your graveyard, it will show you with a do not enter symbol what you can summon and what you can't. So it makes it a little bit easier for you. Alright, now this we do not put in the main deck. However, this is important to go over because we're using this skill, and I'm going to type it here, Master of Rites 2, which immediately activates Ritual Cage at the start of the duel. So you get this every duel no matter what. Alright, so Master Rites 2. So what does Ritual Cage do and why do we care about it? You take no battle damage involving attacks from Ritual. That's pretty good. Second effect, Ritual monsters you control cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's monster effects. So how's that relevant? Levianeer, Vermilion, Sin, Dire, Garunix, M7, all of those target or destroy monsters. Cage says no. Very, very good. Cyber Slash Harpy Lady, another card that would threaten your Megalith. We say no, so that's why we care about this. We're going to pull this out of the deck, but that's why you care about that. Next, we're going to go over 7 extra deck cards that we run. Now, it is very common. Another reason why we run Benten is that it helps us exceed summon. So it's a very common way for us to get 2 level 4s on the field. Thus, we have a rank 4 toolbox. And our ranked 4 toolbox is very, very good. So we're going to go over it. And we also run a rank 8 for in case we get 2 level 8s on the field. So first we run Double Roach. Why do we run Double Roach? Well, RDA is top tier, right? So Roach is good against RDA. Stardust shows up whenever. But Thunder Dragons, Levianeer, negate the summon. It's inherent. Roach can only negate inherent summons. That means summons that do not start by an effect. So cards that require an effect in order to special summon will not trigger Roach. What do I mean by that? Well, Thunder Dragon Hawk. What else? Thunder Dragon Hawk is one. Elegant Egotist is one, even though that doesn't summon level 5 or higher. Cards that would activate Onslaught of the Fire Kings. That's another one. So those summoned by effects, we cannot negate those. However, Levianeer, Synchro Summons, all of that can be negated. So that's why we have Double Roach. And it's good for the grind game against Thunder Dragon, so we want to run 2. If you only have 1, that's fine too. One Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is really good against Fire Kings. It's also really good against Lunalite, which I expect to get a lot of popularity. And it requires 2 level 4 monsters. The water, while it has a water as a material, it gains 500 deck, but that's irrelevant in this deck. Second effect, once per turn. Quick effect. It's a quick effect, which means it can be used on the opponent's turn. You can detach 1 material from this card. Your opponent can activate card effects in the graveyard this turn. So, Garunix cannot activate. They have Lunalites in the graveyard, cannot activate. That's a hard counter there. Stone of the Ancients, that's another good one to negate with this. So there's a lot of great cards for Dweller to be relevant against. So that's why we run it. Okay. Malevolent Sin, 2 level 4s, once per turn, detach 1 material. Target 1 monster your opponent controls and banish it. This really helps out with OTKs. Diamond Direwolf, just for niche popping on the field, you tribute it, and then blow up another opponent's card. Good for spot removal of cards that you want to get rid of when you don't have before. Same with Heliopolis, clears field. It helps us clear if our level 8s are clogging us, and then we contribute any amount of monsters, including Benten. And remember, when Benten's tributed, we search. So you essentially get Helios effect for free. Non-target pop cards on the field, meaning that your opponent's going to have to respond to the immediate activation of this card or risk losing their back row or whatever. They don't get to choose what they lose, to choose to respond after the effect goes through. So they don't know what you're going to destroy. Add Samurai for the attacking twice. This card's fantastic for allowing us to play through hand traps. Now, I'm going to set starting hand to 4, so that way you see hands when going first. So I'm going to turn on the music now. I wanted you to understand the main concept before we got the music going. Alright, that's a brick. Okay, so with this hand, we already opened up the trap. So we're going to start by normal summoning Senju. Senju on summon will add a Megalith, any ritual monster. Now in this particular case, we have full combo. So what is full combo in this deck? Full combo means that we are going to have a Bethor live setup, okay, at given time. And I'm going to show you how we're going to get to that here. We're going to go with the turn 1 combos first, and then I'm going to show you some turn 2 combos in this deck and how to play through Disruption. Alright? So, generally the monster you want to summon first is Haggith. In a case like this, when we have 1 spell or trap in the hand already, we could summon Ophiel first. Alright? So, in the case where we don't have spell and traps, we want to summon Haggith. And I'm going to show you why. Actually, in this case, we do want to summon Haggith first. Yeah, no, we can go Ophiel first. So since we have 1 spell trap, we're going to go Ophiel first. We're going to tribute to Senju, because Senju is equal. Ophiel is 4 and Senju is 4. So it's equal. Remember, equal, equal, equal. Ophiel on summon will search a Megalith ritual. Once you have Ophiel and Haggith, you want Oak. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to summon Haggith. 4 into 4. Equal. Activate Haggith to search Portal. Now, if you could only summon Haggith once and you've bricked, you always search Emergence first, because it'll give you a better grind game. We're going to activate Portal, and then we're going to Ritual Summon again. One thing I did not mention is the effects of every Megalith monster to Ritual Summon are hard once per turn. So when I say hard once per turn, I mean that you can only use that effect of that card once per turn. Not dependent on how many copies you are, just the effect of a certain card can only be used once per turn. So Bethor, Phallic, Haggith, Ophiel, and Och can only be used their effects to Ritual Summon once per turn. So we're going to activate now. We can use Och's effect since we're safe. And what do I mean by safe? I mean that we both have the spell and trap. The thing is, if you risk drawing the trap and having to discard it, you don't want to use Och's effect, because other than that, it can mess you up in the long run. Because if you discard the trap, you won't have a grind game. Now, in Duel Links, we don't get to choose chain order. It's asking me to change to select chain order. But for the sensibility of how Duel Links decides chain order, I am going to show you what happens. Alright? So, Portal goes link 1, we target. Alright? So this is how Duel Links would register it. Now, because we opened up both spells and traps, we can now add Ophiel back to our hand. Because we don't need Haggith. We have both spells and traps already. And now Och will go Chain Link 2. This is the order Duel Links orders it. So I want to play in this order. I don't want to change the order. And now we're going to discard Phaleg. Now you may say, oh, why would we want the ritual monster in the graveyard? What's the point of that? Well, the point is it'll fuel it up with Phaleg and potentially allow you to generate more advantage later on. Now, we use Och's effect to ritual summon once. Ophiel activates, adding a copy of Bethor to our hand, unless we already have it in graveyard. Can't check graveyard here, can I? Okay, well, we'll assume that we don't have it in graveyard. Yeah, we do. We do have it in grave. Okay, so then we don't need to add Bethor. But we can anyway. We'll add Bethor. So, even though we have one in grave, it's a good idea to pick up a second one. Just because it can help you if you need another Bethor later on, then you have access to another one. So, we'll pick up Bethor here. We'll set Emergence, then go. End our turn. Now, even though he's not going to do anything. Now, what's very important to understand, alright, even though we just jumped to main phase 1, is that in the draw phase, you have to have toggle to on. And I cannot stress how important this is when playing Megalith. The first thing you need to be looking in the top right of your screen, alright, there's going to be an hourglass. An hourglass shows delays. You need to have self-chain on, and you need to have toggle to auto or on. So you want to have the toggle button to the left side of your screen, okay? Whenever you're doing this, because you need to set toggle on. And I'm going to help you understand why. On the top right of your screen, there's a toggle button, which shows what your opponent has. Now, if the hourglass is flickering, that means they have an activatable card. So, what you have to think at that time, what activatable card could they have? Now, realistically, you're going to always have Ritual Cage live, alright, along with your Portal and Emergence, given that you have this setup. So, you have to play around MST and Cosmic Cyclone. So if you see your opponent has an activatable delay, do not activate your trap first. Wait for them. They may hit your back row first, and then you can chain, gain some value off of it. Okay? If you don't see them have a delay, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to activate Emergence in the draw phase. Alright? To play around Galaxy Cyclone. And do not activate the effect to summon Oak, because that will not play around Lightning Vortex. You want to wait. Wait till your opponent establishes the field, then Oak. Alright? Now, with getting onto that, alright, so now our opponent commits a bunch of things to the field. We're going to activate Emergence. Emergence will activate and summon the Och. Now, something important that you need to know is if your opponent only sets one card or two cards, you need to think, okay? Because what your opponent could do, if they're smart, is they'll bait the main phase. They'll bait the battle phase. So what does that mean? Your opponent may have more cards to play, but they're scared of the pop, so they're going to try to bait you the pop early. So if they have 2 or 1 card, 1 or 2 cards, let them go to the end phase. It's fine. Unless you feel like there's something you mandatorily have to pop. Alright, so since we have Bethor in the hand, we'll have back Phaleg. And at this point, we could pop and then go forward with plays. But we don't need to pop here. Alright, so we pop. And then if we needed to pop, we will do so. So I'm just going to show you what we do. Now, there is no cards to pop. In the current situation that we have, we would check the amount of rituals in the grave with different names. We have 3. 1 Bethor, 1 Haggith, 1 Ophiel, with different names. So if we have multiple of the copies of any of these cards, those additional copies wouldn't count. But we have 3 different. So we'd be able to pop 3 times. Now, we end our turn. Well, he ends his turn, I should say. Alright, back to our turn. Now we can activate Emergence again. Emergence will resummon the Haggith. And then Haggith will trigger Portal. Remember, last turn I really didn't say this, but Portal, when a Megalith is special summon, add a ritual back to the hand. So we'll take back Ophiel if we wanted to. You don't necessarily have to add back the Ophiel because we already ritual summoned it, which means that we take it away from being special summoned again, but it does help us extend a little bit in some cases. So we can summon the Ophiel. 4/4. Haggith will get spun because when a Megalith monster summoned by Emergence leaves the field, it goes back in the deck. And then at this point, we can add the Och. Activate. Summon that Ak. Or Och, or whatever you want to call it. And now, we're going to Ritual Summon. Remember how I said we Ritual Summon from the hand, and we tribute monsters on the field or in the hand to equal that level or exceed it? Well, tribute 8/8 to summon an 8. So we tribute an 8 to get an 8. 3,700 attack. Now, if we wanted to draw and discard, we could have and potentially gotten the 4K lethal. But that is a really nice 3,700 phallic. And we attack for beefy damage. And we looking clean. And that's almost near lethal. Restart. Alright. So this is a Ben 10 hand. So to set up this combo, we're going to start off with Haggith. Haggith tributes Ben 10. And now Chain Order activates. Now, because of the way Duel Links is activated, they're both optional triggers. So, in the case in the TCG, when you have 2 optional triggers, you could decide the order of those triggers to occur. If any effect would, require any turn player priority, you get turn player priority because it's your turn. Now, again, in the spirit of Duel Links chaining, we're going to do it like that. We're going to activate Haggith as Chainlink 1. Ben 10 comes Chainlink 2. Now, in a case like this, Ben 10, another reason why we play it, the third reason, is we can chain block. Now, what the heck is chain blocking? What the heck does that even mean? Sounds like some foreign language. Well, chain blocking refers to as an effect activating on the field, and then 2 effects activating simultaneously. So, it doesn't even have to activate on the field, but 2 effects activating simultaneously to each other. Okay? So, since Haggith and Ben 10 are 2 simultaneous triggers, not only do we get to decide the order of those triggers, but we can stop our opponent from chaining directly to one effect or another. And this was very common in Subterra format when you had Nemesis Warrior and Subterra Behemoth Umastrix, if you remember. Behemoth Umastrix would come out as Chainlink 1, be able to banish a Red Eye Slash Dragon, while Chainlink 2 would be your Nemesis Warrior, being able to dodge the chain. So would be able to chain block. Okay, so in a case like this, we're going to be able to chain block. And this is the same. If you summon a Bithor, and you think that they have a counter trap, you can chain block said Bithor, and then activate Ben 10 as Chainlink 2, and they'll be forced to negate the Ben 10. Alright, so that's something you need to know. It can be crucial in playing around things. So we're going to add Senju here, remember, any Life Fairy, and then we're going to add Portal. By the way, if you want to see me play this deck more, make sure you follow. Not only are we going to be climbing this deck tomorrow, but I'm going to be playing this in Stage 2. So you're going to want to make sure you're followed to me on Twitch. Going to normal the Senju. Activate Senju to grab Ophiel, because we already have Haggith. Number one is you must have Ophiel and Haggith. These are the two you want to combo together. Och is third. So first comes Haggith and Ophiel, then Och, okay? And you need to make sure you get Haggith for a growing game. We're going to activate Haggith to summon Ophiel. 4/4. Field. Level 4's field, level 8's hand. We're going to activate Ophiel, and then we're going to activate Portal. Now, Portal becomes Chain Link here, so we're going to add back the Haggith. And then we'll add the Oak. Since we already have Haggith and Ophiel, we can go for Oak. And it's very important in this state of the combo, you summon Oak first, before you resummon Haggith a second time. The searching effects of these cards and the draw and discard are not hard once per turns. Alright? Only the ritual summoning are. Okay? Except for Bithor. Bithor is the only one where the popping is a hard once per turn. But everything else, the searching, discarding, are not hard once per turns. Now, in a case like this, we can draw and discard. However, I will caution you here. If you use Och's effect, you won't be able to exceed instead of Bithor. You're going to probably say, why, Sean? Well, if I discard Bithor and I get the trap, then what's going to happen is if I attempt to exceed summon, I won't have any materials on the field to summon Bithor with. Okay? Even with Emergence. So, we do not want to trigger here if we want to exceed. If we do want to exceed and we don't care, then we will trigger. But assuming we do want to exceed, we're not going to trigger here. Because it's too dangerous. Unless we feel we absolutely have to. So, that's the case there. Sorry. Little bit of a delay. So now we're going to summon Haggith and Emergence. Now in this case, if we want to exceed, we can. Now, pretending we're going up against Thunder Dragons here, we'd make a Roach. If we go up against Blue Eyes, we make Dweller. Now, since a very common deck you see is Blue Eyes, I'm going to show you how you want to play against them. Alright, never mind where that was summoned. Ignore that. But you want to summon Dweller. So now we have Bithor set up and we have a Dweller. Now why would we want to summon Dweller? Well, we want to turn off Stone of the Ancients. We also want to turn off his ability to potentially summon a Dragon Spirit of White. We want to make it more difficult for him to summon said Dragon Spirit of White. So he goes. Standby phase, we don't see a delay. We go Emergence and we wait. Now he commits his whole field. We activate our Emergence. And now we activate Portal to add back the Ben 10. And we also make sure that we chain Dweller this turn. So that way he does not get to get his graveyard reliant effects like his stones. Another thing with Megalith, I know this sounds crazy, is once your ritual monsters are detached, not only are they treated as properly ritual summoned, but you get to summon them again off Emergence, which is crazy. So endless advantage. Now we can pop if we needed to. We pop in the main phase with the Bithor. We have the Dweller, and we're in a good spot. So very, very good. And if we pop using Ben 10, we can search up another Ben 10 or send you for the following turn. Okay. Very good. So that's the Guardian. Now, I'm going to up this to 5 cards, and I'm going to show you what plays you would make playing through back row. Alright. So, something you need to know with Megalith, okay, and this is very important, is that when you're playing through a Floodgate, you can chain block Floodgate. So how the hell would you chain block a Floodgate? Well, if you want to chain block a Floodgate, you can use Och to do it. Och is a quick effect, which means that you can chain it to any mainstay effect on the field. Alright? On your turn or on your opponent's turn. Alright? So, what would happen is, if you wanted to chain block a floodgate, you would activate Haggith or any of your other level 4s or 8s as chain link 1. With Cell Chain on, you chain Arch's chain link 2. So if you don't want your Bethor to be floodgated, you want 2 ritual summon targets. So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you have, let's say, a Phalanx and a Bethor, right? You want your Bethor not to get floodgated, or whatever, or your Phalanx. Then what you would do is, say we don't want Phalanx to get floodgated. We would summon Bethor out with Oak, and then Phalanx out with Haggith. So that's something that you would want to accomplish. Alright? So you would summon out the monster that you do not want to get floodgated out with your Arch. Excuse me, not with your Haggith, with your Arch. So the monster you do not want to get floodgated would be summoned out with your Oak. Yes. Okay. So that's a way to potentially dodge a floodgate. Alright? Is you want to chain those two in a simultaneous chain. So it's a very, very, very interesting concept to understand. Now, why the hell would we dodge floodgate? Now that you're probably wondering why. Well, I'm going to explain. If you summon the monster out with Och, and you have to do with Och, that you don't want to get floodgated. So if we want to Phalanx not to get floodgated, and we summon it out with Och, then immediately once Phalanx hits the field, Haggith would still have to resolve and summon your second target. This is very advanced gameplay. So because Haggith has to resolve right thereafter, they have missed the timing on Floodgate. Because Floodgate has to be resolved right after the monster has been summoned. So since it can't, then you can dodge that. So very, very good. Okay, so anyway, on to the next thing. Another way you can dodge Floodgate in this deck is with Emergence. So if you summon a Senju, right, and you want to dodge a Floodgate, on response to Senju, you chain Emergence and summon. Because Senju still has to resolve, then Emergence summons, cannot chain directly to summon, then you can dodge a Floodgate that way. Anyway, going turn 2, this hand's not exactly the best, but it does open us up to a Haggith and Arch. Now, if you're trying to play through back row, the main thing that you need to realize is that you need to be able to understand what back row your opponent has. If you feel they have a Ballista squad, you really don't want to commit Emergence. Sometimes it's just best to go into Bethor and try to grind them out. Sometimes if you feel that they have a Floodgate, then you want to grind them and try to get them to Floodgate at level 4, then Ritual Summon over with another level 8. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So in a case like this, pretending that he has a Floodgate, we're going to go Phalanx, and we're going to tribute over the Phalanx. Now, why the heck would you tribute over a Phalanx and not the Bethor? You may say, Sean, does it matter? And the answer is yes. Because if he Floodgates here, let's say if he Floodgated, right? Then we'd be able to still Ritual Summon with the Bethor because we haven't Ritual Summoned yet. So if this got Floodgated, right? We would go Bethor over the Haggith, that's Floodgated. Summon the Arch, and it still works because that's a level 4 before. Activate Portal. We're not going to chain Arch here because we don't want to draw, it's too dangerous. And then we'd add back the Haggith, tribute over that, and go into another Haggith. So that's a way that we could potentially play through Floodgate and still have full setup. So we still do have full setup because when we summon the Arch, we get back the Bethor, and then we're able to pop on his turn, and I'm about to show you how. Remember, we activate in the draw phase. And then we get back the Bethor. Well, we don't summon in the draw phase. We really want to summon once he commits his field. Remember that. Alright? So we want to summon once he commits his field. And then we can pop for how many? This will get spun, so we'll have 1, 2 pops. So still good. 2 pops on the field. Alright? Even with the not the best hand, and we still play through Disruption. So very, very good. If you think that your opponent has a Mystical Space Typhoon, and you're scared that they're going to hit your back row, then you want to Bethor them immediately. So that's a way that you want to go about that. If you think your opponent has Cosmic or MSD, you want to play through that immediately. If you think that your opponent has Karma Cut, sometimes it's the best way to Bethor. So these are different back rows that you want to take different approaches to. So I'm just giving you some of the most common back row in the game and the way you want to take approach. If you think that they have a Tretch, then you may want to Bethor through that. So I'm just giving you, like I said, some of those examples. I'm going to show you one more hand here, and then we can get summary through all this. So this is the God hand. If we go second, we're going to summon a Senju. It activates that Senju, and we're going to add a Ben 10. Now, you can get to Haggith with this setup, so you don't have to worry. In a case where you have both Phaleg and Bethor, you're generally tributing Phaleg first. Now, another cool thing you could do is you could play through a Strike Bouncer. So if they were to negate, right, in a current scenario, let's say they were to negate. If you think that they have a Strike Bouncer, you wouldn't search a Benton, you would search a Haggith, okay, to try and OTK them. Well, actually, you could search a Benton. There's two ways to go about it. A, you could play through it. B, if you search a Benton, you can chain block them and go into Bethor. Or you can chain block them, go into Ophiel, search, and then if you have another level 4, then you can potentially summon that 4 and OTK them. So it's a bit complicated to understand that, but there's the two ways that you could do it. So for example, let's say we have multiple level 4s in the hand, right? Let's say we have both Ophiel and Haggith, right? And then we got to Ben 10 off Senju. What you would do is you would summon Ophiel with the first level 8 and chain block. You can also do this by adding the level 4. So if we chain block an Ophiel, we don't necessarily need to have another level 4 in the hand. So if we chain block the Ophiel, remember when I said we talk about chain blocking? Right? So we talk about chain blocking. Now, did our Ben 10 resolve? Or did it not do that? Okay, it didn't resolve. Well, because it didn't allow, I didn't click yes to Ben 10. But if we had a Ben 10 in the hand, and this is where I just want you to see this conceptually. If we have a Ben 10 in the hand and we choose yes, not like a ding ding, then we are able to go Bethor, pitch the Ben 10, summon the Haggith, and if they negate the Haggith, then we can go into Malevolent Sin, and then potentially OTK them, because 24 and 16 is 4K lethal. That's potentially another way. You can also opt to chain block the Haggith as well, so that's just a few ways you can deal with a bouncer. If they have a ton of back run a bouncer, then sometimes the best way is just to Bethor them right off the bat. So those are just a few ways. You've seen the combo 100 times, so we don't really need to go over the combo here. But just trying to show you that. Okay, so a summary. Megalith is one of the harder decks to play. Once you master them, though, they are very strong. I'm going to be playing this deck in Stage 2. So you make sure, you want to see that Stage 2 content, follow me on Twitch, because I stream this live. Okay, I stream live all 3 days, so make sure you follow me on Twitch. Alright? We are going to try to get top 100. If we don't, then we're going to be humble about it, and we'll accept what we get. You know, getting 40, 50K is not bad either. It's definitely a good day's work. But we are going to definitely try for top 10 and 8 or top 100 global. Another thing, too, about Megalith is that you need to understand that they are how to deal with different matchups. And I'm going to go over that very quickly, even though I've kind of already gone over that in some bits and pieces. When you're dealing with Thunder Dragons, the main thing you want to be focused on is Roach. If you get this on the field, turn 1, along with a Bethor setup, you're in a really good spot. You remember when we talked about the Exceed setup? So if we set this up alongside an Emergence play, it is very strong because they can't levy near your back row, and you can stop an M7 or a potential Strike Bouncer summon. Dweller is really good against Fire Kings. We can negate all activated effects in the grave. So if you're against Fire Kings, you want to summon this late game, not initially. You want to wait for them to threaten a Garunix or for you to threaten lethal. So once you're able to threaten lethal, then you want to summon this as a backup, so that way they don't clear your field. So those are two of the big ones. Automat, you want to, like I said, the advice playing through a Strike Bouncer, that's something you want to know if you're going through turn 2. Turn 1, set up a Bithor, and it's going to be very hard. Wait for yourself to make sure that you have a Bithor in the hand before they can bolt you. That's something you want to be very cautious to win about. So that way, if they activate bolt, they're going to have to burn their whole hand. Or if they only have one of it, then you can blow up their field and destroy their normal summon, which it becomes harder for them to come back with. Another deck that's relevant is Water Exceed. Water and Harpies, you already have a distinct advantage against, because with Water and Harpies, they can't target your monsters, so they're going to have to blow up your cage first. If you're worried about Hunting Ground and you go first, my best advice is you want to Direwolf turn 1. You want to go Direwolf and pop their Hunting Ground, so that way they can't pop your Emergence and your Portal. Those are 4 main decks. Sidra, you gotta kind of read. Sidra and Shira, you gotta kind of read their back row. Okay? But that is it. That's my Megalith tutorial. Make sure you follow me on Twitch, because I'm playing this live tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be climbing with this to max. So you want to make sure that you follow me on Twitch, so that way you can see the smooth and easy climb. Okay? So, until next time, this is Tilt Matre, signing out. Goodbye and good.